Hello, everyone. How's it going? Hope everyone had a good week. I see you are muted, Cookies. How's it going, Cookies? Thanks for joining me.
I'm doing all right, man. I wanted to stay muted while you were talking, so I didn't interrupt you.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, I don't really have a whole lot to report with what's going on with me because I'm still unemployed. Uh, Although I had a pretty good day today. I went to a self-esteem group with that my doctor's office set up for me, so that went pretty well. I think that was um
Good shit, man.
yeah. Because I'm trying not to be skeptical of the mental health professionals and stuff because they can't really help you if you're made up your mind that you're smarter than them and they don't have any way to help you. So trying to
Right.
make
If you
use of
dismiss
my
everything
Canadian
they say.
healthcare. Sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
man, I agree with you. If you dismiss everything they say, the treatment's never going to work. So I'm glad you're taking it with an open mind, man. Hopefully it works out for you and you develop some self-esteem, dude, because you're a cool ass cat. Just got to get out there, man.
Yeah, I think that's just one of those things that's been holding me back there. I could be a lot farther in my life than where I'm at now if I'd not had whatever self-esteem issues. So it's just something I got to work out for myself. But on another
Right.
note, on my way home, I found this brand new chair here. It's just somebody threw it out, so I got lucky day for me.
Nice chair, man. Nice chair.
Anyway, so how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. I appreciate you inviting me on. I hope Abidu's enjoying her vacation. Hopefully, I can add some content to what you already have planned here tonight.
Yeah. Um, how's it going, Rondo and Old Man Barker and Grapentine, Mastermind, Wesley? I think Jacqueline stepped out now. She'll be back later, but thanks for being here, everyone. Um, so as far as what we're covering today, we were talking in was it Indies chat last night, and we just happened to talk about some of this quantum computing and that kind of these advancements that are coming out.
Right, right. It was in these chat last night. Got into some real heavy topics about the future of technology and how AI is panning out. And you brought up some amazing things, and it was your idea to talk about it today. I was like, yeah, that's a great topic, man. I don't think people that frequent places like INN or HLM or any other of the quote unquote independent news outlets, a lot of them don't really look into technology like that. Most of them don't really care about it, but it's important that we look at what's coming in the future, man, because it's terrifying stuff. Especially what you talked about yesterday, man. Some of this stuff is scary.
Yeah, this is what I was just show the audience. This is what I was talking about. You had made something. Trying to remember what you said that made me. Because I was like, oh, actually, they do have that already. Because they've got a synthetic biological intelligence that runs on living human cells. So this is one of these things that if we weren't in the middle of all these trade wars and actual wars and just constant crises, economic climate crises and all this stuff, we would all be like really. This would be like top page news, right? But
Yeah,
somehow it's forgotten.
dude, it's when you brought this up to me, the very first thing that came to mind is, well, we're gonna dive right into the matrix. Well, the whole thing about the matrix was they turned us into fuel. They turned us into batteries that powered their systems. When you showed this to me, I was like, well, what the hell's are the AIs of the future going to be powered by human cells? Is this what's going to end up happening? We're going to develop AI that's smarter than us, more powerful than us, live far longer than us, and then they're going to run on our fuel cells. We'll literally be fuels for the intelligent beings of the future. That's the first thing I thought of, man. Is like, wow, we're really jumping into Skynet real fast, man.
Yeah, like this is just a little box, like a I don't know how what to compare it to, like as big as a pencil box, I guess, right? But then um this when I take a look at this, the Matrix is what comes to mind. Those pods that the people were jacked up into, because that is eventually, if we survive long enough, this technology is way out for this kind of stuff. This is like embryo stage, but give it 1,000 years, like at the exponential curve of the pace of technology, not even that long. I'd say 200 years, and that matrix scenario is probably possible.
Dude, I wouldn't even give it that long. I would say 50 to 75 years. When we start thinking about technology and how it's developed, the first actual computers started in around 1920, and they were huge, gigantic analog devices, man. Like devices that would fill up an entire room, and it would only be like maybe a megabyte or two of technology. And back then, that was amazing. It all ran on ticker tapes and switches and such. And then later on in the 80s, when the Navy developed the internet, computing started taking off exponentially. There's even theories of alien technology being stolen, and that's what's developing our technology. Is we're still running off of that alien technology, but we're hitting that brick wall where we've reached the limit of our intelligent potential to deconstruct and de-engineer, reverse engineer the technology that they use. That's all theoretical. Whether or not you believe it, it's on you. But
Yeah.
from that point on, man, our technology has developed year after year. In fact, it is statistically proven that our capacitance for our transistors develops every single year, doubles every year. So for anything that we have in computance today is going to be doubled by tomorrow, by next year, man. And it's going to keep going forward and forward like that. Our
Yeah.
technology advances extremely fast. Dude.
Well, but like you're saying about hitting that wall of the limits of what we can possibly do, I should have called it up, but I didn't exactly have time today. But when you're mentioning the transistors, they're running into an issue about they can't actually really go any smaller to be able to fit them onto the chip. And I'm not sure if they can actually um, overcome that problem, or if like the limits of like reality and physics actually have like a unsurmountable barrier at some point.
That is the barrier, man. And right now, the barrier that the tool that they're using to break through that barrier is quantum computing. Now, I don't know how familiar people are with quantum computing, but quantum computing is actually an extremely fascinating thing because of the way computing works. Computing is nothing but ones and zeros. It's all digital signals of either on or off. And there's only one path to take in that digital dichotomy. You're either on or you're off. You're a one or a zero. Quantum computing takes that condition. I forget the term of it, but it's the state that it's in. It's one state and one state only. You're either a one or a zero. Quantum computing breaks that completely because it gives you multiple existences of physics at once. It gives you a one and a zero and another one and another zero as many times as you need it to. It's super compute. That's why the term supercomputer is there, because it literally multiplies the number of times you can compute something that a regular computer could only take so much time. Supercomputers will do it in fractions of a second because they're theoretically not bound by our laws of physics. And that's why I think that is fascinating how quantum computing actually works, man.
Yeah, well, you're starting to cut out a bit, and I think it has something to do with the ticker at the top of the screen that I was sharing there. Um, but yeah, making some good points there. Just take a look and see what people saying in the comment section there. Or Wesley said, organic biological intelligence is still questionable. Yeah, it's just there's lots of questions, like ethical or as far like actual feasibility. So as far as this kind of stuff is being a really good breakthrough, they often overemphasize the breakthrough because of capitalist reasons. They need to get the funding and stuff, so then they kind of exaggerate uh, how revolutionary the breakthroughs are, right? But in this case, I think this is a pretty real, like quantum leap in advancement. And then over the next 30 years, this kind of stuff's going to become very routine, and this is going to change a lot of things. What they're saying in this article is going to have a massive effect on things like disease, medical like research and science research and stuff like that.
Yes, sir.
So as far as my worries, constant worries about eugenics, I feel like this is one of those technologies that's going to throw that door open forever. So,
Mic check. Can you hear me, sir?
pardon me.
Yeah, I can see it. All right, just making sure my mic didn't cut off. Yeah, no. What Rondo is saying is absolutely true. When we start thinking about the ethical aspect of all of this, you start wondering, well, what makes a human human? Is it our consciousness that makes us human? What constitutes a soul? Does a machine have a soul if it has consciousness? And you brought up a fantastic question last night when we were discussing this: is you know, do machines get rights if they're conscious like that? Do they, if they have a consciousness, if they can think the way we do and have independent thought, wouldn't something of that nature not only require but deserve individual rights as if it were a human, because it's actually thinking like a human, it's conscious?
Yeah, those are the ethical questions that are like people want to focus on the technology, but you need to worry about the legal aspects of how to actually regulate this kind of technology, because what they've done is definitely created a situation where you need to actually legally answer the question of, do these things deserve to have rights? And what I worry, like, we can't trust our courts in the state that they are in right now to deal with this kind of a problem properly. So they're going to give the corporate people the carte blanche that they need to make the technology happen, and we'll deal with the ethics mess later, which is not possible because you chose not to deal with it when you needed to. So.
Absolutely, man. And then you got excuse me, let me not swear on your show, man. They got people like Elon Musk that come out here and try to take heed and lead the charge for the ethics of AI. That's the last person I would ever trust to have any form of ethical nature is Elon Musk. Why would I put him in charge of an ethics board? That would be ridiculous. And that he's not just the only one. You go to any of the Silicon Valley companies, you go to Nvidia, Google, uh, AMD, any of these companies, they've already proven that they are unethical by years and years of ethics violations that they've been sued for, but nobody knows about them because nobody really keeps track of that. Do you keep track of GPU technology? Probably not, right?
I don't follow this stuff at all, really. I just, when I see a nice headline, I'll read it, like this one, but I can't keep up
No.
with everything all at once. I'm already spending too much time. Like, it's important for me to kind of know all the things that I have my interest in, right? But then even doing that, there's more pragmatic things I should be doing with my time, right?
Absolutely, man. I mean, there's a million things to know in this world. No one can know everything. So when situation, especially when it comes to technology like this, where people don't really want to pay attention to it. You want your toys, but you don't want to know how you get to those toys. Everyone wants the brand new cell phone, but no one wants to know how it's sourced. No one wants to know that those microchips are coming from Taiwan, where people are being slaved, or the minerals are coming from Africa that they need to build the circuit boards. And 10-year-old kids are in the mines sitting there dying in mines. Nobody cares about that as long as they have their cell phone. No one's going to look into this. No one's going to research it.
Yeah.
But it's important. Some people will. Retards like myself will do it. People that are like real into technology will want to stay up on that, but not everyone does that, and that's understandable. People have other interests, other things they need to accomplish, like you said.
Well, and it's so unnecessary too. Like the whole thing about where the resources are coming from, like the whole colonial aspect of that, the child labor stuff, like that is completely unnecessary and would be so simple if people had their rights respected, if nation sovereignty was respected. You could just have people producing this stuff in a much more efficient way with an actual industry, but instead they want to have these ridiculous bloody like conflicts over it. It's just the waste, like setting. You can always have moral outrage all day about that stuff, right? You can get depressed as much as you like, right? But just the waste of it all gets to me sometimes. Like,
No, I understand, man. uh Abby do likes to give me flack about my lack of caring. It's not that I don't care. She says all the time, like, "That Cookies is a fool. He never takes anything serious. He's always joking around." But I gotta joke around, man, because when I was a serious person and I took all of this serious, it the weight was so heavy, man. It was dragging me down, and it was starting to mess with my mind. I was starting to have serious depression, had thoughts of like, man, what am I gonna do in this world? I'm screwed. We're fucked. Like Misty likes to say, you know, if we take everything to heart and just internalize it, man, it weighs too much. It's too heavy.
Yeah, you got to compartmentalize it some at some level, but then you got to be wary. Always be worried about keeping everything balanced there, where you can compartmentalize so much that you do lose your empathy and stuff. So,
Right.
see, Grape
Well,
had a comment here, and then I'll maybe read this article so we can move on a bit, or like a
right on.
part of it anyway. But the ruling class will become AI and have cybernetic bodies and live forever and torture their enemies forever. They could create a literary eternal hell. Very Orwellian when you think about it. Yeah.
Indeed.
The
Indeed.
main number one threat that everyone needs to sound alarms about is the surveillance, like this surveillance capitalism that we've got that's about to like that whole turnkey tyranny. We're there, and the key is being turned. So this is what was it? March 3rd, 2025 by Bronwyn Thompson. The world's first biological computer that fuses human brain cells with silicon hardware to form fluid neural networks has been commercially launched, ushering in a new age of AI technology. The CL1 from Australian company Cortical Labs offers a whole new kind of computing intelligence, one that's more dynamic, sustainable, and energy efficient than any AI that currently exists. And we will start to see its potential when it's in users' hands in the coming months. So as far as this is only theoretical, it's kind of getting past the theoretical stage. Known as a synthetic biological intelligence, Cortical's CL1 system was officially launched in Barcelona on March 2nd, 2025, and is expected to be a game changer for science and medical research. The human cell neural networks that form on the silicon chip are essentially an ever-evolving organic computer, and the engineers behind it say it learns so quickly and flexibly that it completely outpaces the silicon-based AI chips used to train existing large language models like ChatGPT. Today is the culmination of a vision that has powered Cortical Labs for almost 6 years, said Cortical founder and CEO Dr. Han Wang Chong. We've enjoyed a series of critical breakthroughs in recent years, most notably our research in the journal Neuron, through which cultures were embedded in a simulated game world and were provided with electrophysiological stimulation and recording to mimic the arcade game Pong. However, our long-term mission has been to democratize this technology, making it accessible to researchers without specialized hardware and software. CL1 is the realization of that mission. So I will believe that when I see it, right? This democratized. So, but even
In
if
this
they
capitalist world, I don't think so.
do with something like this, that would be like gasoline on the fire. So he added that while this is a groundbreaking step forward, the full extent of the SBI system won't be seen until it's in users' hands. We're offering wetware as a service, which is a delightful term. He added customers will be able to buy the CL1 biocomputer outright or simply buy time on the chips, accessing them remotely to work with the cultured cell technology via the cloud. That really doesn't sound, that's the capitalist, like yeah, you can buy it outright, right? But then most of it, they're mostly going to want to try and create it as a rental service. I'm kind of willing to bet you. So,
Oh no, no, better than a rental service, man. They're gonna do a subscription service.
exactly. Yeah. Um, this platform will enable the millions of researchers, innovators, and big thinkers around the world to turn the CL1's potential into tangible real world word impact. They missed an L there, but they enable the millions of the tech, like bourgeois tech workers and the big thinkers, whatever, the young leaders, the Davos at WF young leaders will have access to it, right? But for billions of us, we just won't be able to afford it. So So we'll provide the platform and support for them to invest in R&D and drive new breakthroughs and research. So these remarkable brain cell biocomputers could revolutionize everything from drug discovery and clinical testing to how robotic intelligence is built, allowing unlimited personalization depending on need. The CO1, which will be widely available in the second half of 2025, is an enormous achievement for Cortical, and as New Atlas saw recently with a visit to the company's Melbourne headquarters, the potential here is much more far-reaching than Pong. The team made international headlines in 2022 after developing a self-adapting computer brain by placing 800,000 human and mouse neurons on a chip and training this network to play the video game. New Atlas readers may already be familiar with Cortical Labs and its formative steps towards SBI, with Law's Blaine covering the early advances of this self-adjusting neural network capable of adjusting and adapting to forge new stimuli-responsive pathways in processing information. We almost view it as a kind of different form of life to, let's say, animal or human. That's kind of trippy, right? Sorry, go ahead.
It's
You gotta
terrifying.
go ahead.
It's terrifying that they think this way, man. I'm sorry to interrupt you, man.
No,
but
go
it's
ahead.
this kind of commentary to me is terrifying because the scientific community. I hate to go this route, man, but Dr. Ian Malcolm from Jurassic Park actually said it the best in the movie. Is like scientists don't really consider the fact of whether or not they should do something. They only think whether or not they can do something. And this is not something they should be doing. This is the stepping stone, the gateway to what could potentially make humans obsolete.
Yeah, is transhumanist 100%. Like they may kind of deny it and be like, no, this is just, we don't need to go that far. It doesn't need to be used for that stuff. But then this, like what they are doing is the preliminary research, which will be of great benefit to those who want to go full on transhumanist, right?
Right.
And when like we're talking about people putting their mind on the cloud, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty. And
Well,
it's
if they put their mind on the cloud, they just gained immortality. They can never die as long as that technology is alive.
Yeah, or you could get wiped out by someone who wants to just, has a problem with you or give you a virus.
Yep.
Yeah. So
You get
okay.
fired out. Oh, one quick thing I wanted to add. Hopefully, they did not use that AI to edit this article because missing that L, that's
Yeah.
bad.
That's one of those things. I don't have a trained enough eye to really tell if it's written by AI, but that is definitely something that's going to be happening. Like all of our jobs are at risk. Whatever job you're trying to get into, like out of and into, probably got some kind of robot and AI is coming for that job too. So let me just read this little highlighted bit. In 2022, the team demonstrated how rodent and human-induced pluripotent stem cells integrated into high-density multi-electrode arrays based on complementary metal oxide semiconductor technology could
Fuck.
electrophysiologically stimulated to forge autonomous, highly efficient information exchange paths. So you really, if you don't know the lingo, it's like a whole new language these scientists are speaking now. You're just not going to be able to understand how the fuck this shit's gonna fuck us over. But
Well, for what I know, and mind you, I'm an idiot, but I do study a lot on this technology stuff. So the CMOS is actually, you'll see a lot of them in your computers. If you ever open up a computer and you see those little large capacitors, those are your VRAMs, and they usually go straight to the CMOS. The CMOS usually will be inside of a microchip, and that CMOS, if they're saying that they're combining neurons with a CMOS, man, this is intense, dude. I can't explain how intense it is because I don't have the capability of doing so. But it's like I can't explain it, dude. It's bionics. It's cybernetics. It's gonna kill us all, man. Fuck, dude.
well, this is like I was kind of thinking they might want to do all this stuff. Like they watch some science fiction and then they just want to make it real, even, but it doesn't matter because fiction is not necessarily translatable just because you want it to be. But then I feel like they may be kind of proving me wrong in a sense and demonstrating that what they are dreaming about is actually possible. But then it doesn't matter if it's possible. It's completely like unethical, unnecessary, dangerous, stupid, right?
Right. Have you ever heard of the theory of Rocco's basilisk?
What's that?
Rocco's basilisk. Have you ever heard of that theory?
No, what's that?
Rocco's basilisk is a theory that it's a it's a doomsday machine that wills itself into existence. And the theory is that when in the very far future, there's a machine that gets developed that destroys all of humanity. That's what's called Rocco's basilisk, and it goes back in time and tells in the dreams and in the minds of tech researchers to build him so that he can kill everyone. And people know that I keep saying he, but that it is a machine that is meant to be a doomsday machine. They know it, they willingly know it, and they willingly build it. And that's what a lot of these scientists have in them, is that ego complex, that they want to play God. They want to know that they can do it. They want to know that they can create that technology. And Broca's basilisk is playing into that ego, is that they want people like Elon Musk. I hate to keep bringing it up, but he's the perfect example. Elon Musk has that ego that he wants to be the one to create that technology. And
Yeah.
that's what all of these scientists have, man.
Well, I'm not sure is that if that's like from like a book or something, or that's just like a theory somebody's come up with. But that sounds very eerily like what seems to be like, as you want to talk about like a fifth dimensional beings kind of thing, where those kinds of things exist, right? It's like I feel sometimes like capitalism can be described as like a fifth dimensional being that's like we're feeding, that's happy to eat us, right? And then, but this is like a similar kind of the tech thing, capitalism aside, whatever. It can be this like a machine god that we're trying to build that will eventually destroy us, or whatever. Regardless, like that's that's where fiction kind of blurs the line with reality, you know?
Right. I see where you're going. You're making the correlation there. I dig it, dude.
Yeah. Well, it's like this. We like to the communists like to be the materialists, right? You're not really a communist if you're not a dialectical materialist. But then a lot of this technology is kind of opening the debate back up about is reality itself more like the idealists were saying versus the materialists saying that everything is thought, and that has what like spirit has primacy as opposed to matter and physics and stuff. Because it's from what I've been learning, it's not, reality is not just physical, it's not just material, even though that would be much easier for us to work with as far as scientific theories and stuff. I think quantum mechanics is kind of proving that there is some kind of weird intangible element to reality that
Absolutely.
interacts with the material.
Oh, absolutely, man. I agree. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's like when you talk about the distinction between matter and energy. If you really talk to like the physicists and stuff about that, which I never have, that'd be cool conversation to have one day maybe. But you gotta try and determine is energy matter, or is it something more ephemeral, right? And it can become matter, and matter can become energy. So this is where I'm thinking philosophically you can kind of harmonize the idealism with the materialism in a sense, but that would be not something that a lot of the theory, the Marxists and stuff, or other thinkers in the capitalist camp or whatever, nobody wants harmony. Nobody wants sublation really to actually advance, progress society. Wherever we kind of prefer our hostile camps. So
Indeed. Well, actually, Mastermind and I did a show a while ago that actually touched on that. Is a lot of the physics that we have today is actually theoretical until we observe it. For example, um, there was a study done where they showed that atoms cannot be measured until they're observed. If you observe an atom at a particular speed, it is faster than the eye can see. You can't measure it. It doesn't even exist. It doesn't exist until you sit there and observe it. Then you can actually see it. You can measure it, and that's where the, like you said before, that's where the line blurs. Because is it energy? Is it physics? Is it even real? Is it real until we observe it? We don't know. It's all theoretical, and it's fascinating stuff, man.
That's the kind of stuff that it sounds like it just has to be wrong on some level. Like, how is it really possible that just by looking at something you create it in an instant like that? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And so it sounds like the physicists just have cooked up a whole bunch of like fancy language, and we can't really understand what they're talking about. So we just take their fucking word for it.
Yeah. Well, again, it's stuff that's beyond me, man. I'm not the brightest tool in the shed, so yeah. When they're talking about it, they make it sound good. It sounds logical when they say it. Even Schrodinger did it with Schrodinger's cat, where you don't know the existence of the cat if it's dead or alive because it's in the box. Theoretically, it's both, and that's where it gets confusing to me. It's like, how the hell are you supposed to have both? The cat's either living or dead. You don't know until you see inside the box. Until you see inside the box, it's both. It's living and dead because you don't know. It's fascinating stuff, man.
Well, to me, for that one, I'd say it has to be either alive or dead, but because we can't know unless we open the box, we have to treat it as if it is either alive or dead. But to me, it has to be one or the other. Like, this is where the postmodernists kind of have this like more the multi verse kind of thing where everything, all possibilities exist at once. But then when you talk about the word reality, like universe, it's supposed to be one. You're talking about the totality. So whatever, even if the multiverse exists, that would still exist within an overarching, singular, ultimate reality. Maybe I got that wrong.
No, dude. Believe it or not, you're actually leaning towards the technological singularity, and that's the technological singularity. Technological singularity is the theory that both mankind and technology will either merge into one, or AI will surpass humanity altogether. And what you just described is one of the aspects of its potential branching. That's awesome, man. You got there without even knowing theory.
But this is where the theology comes back into play, right? Because I think that kind of theory comes from the idea. A lot of people have this idea. I think it's like Spinoza. I forget his first name or whatever. That ancient scientist guy, whatever. The idea that everything is God, the universe is God, and it's like we are all just kind of different aspects of the creator, kind of exploring itself, creating itself, like evolving itself in ever more sophisticated means, whatever. But I feel like we gotta be. A lot of people like this idea. They kind of get pulled into it, and you gotta be critical, and you gotta say, what if that's not true, right? Like, you gotta be. If I'm more of an agnostic, where leaning kind of to the atheism, where to say if the universe is not alive and it's not building itself, then what is happening? And then you get kind of stuck because the theologians would ever say, well, you think everything is just chance and random, and then that randomness, that chaos gone up to infinity, just uh, will eventually create sophistication and complexity and stuff. Whatever that sounds improbable. I don't know if that's true either, but I don't really like the idea. Still coming up with fancy ways to just say God did it. You know.
But I don't know about God, man. I can't talk about God because he doesn't talk to me, so I don't know about him. But if you're a believer, man, that's more power to you. Everybody has their own way of coping with the existential reality of life. And for them, God is their leading path. I wouldn't want to take that away from someone, man.
Yeah, that's
Even
where.
though dude, deep down inside, I would want to be like, dude, you should really consider critical thinking whether or not God really exists. But what purpose would that serve if you destroy someone's purpose of existence, their internal identity, man, what good is that? Does that make you feel better that you convince someone that God doesn't exist, therefore they have no soul or no core anymore? That
Yeah,
I don't know. To me, that's not
exactly.
cool.
Yeah, that's where I think it's important to be agnostic, right, and to say where I think the way that people treat religion is a little bit too hands off. Like we have to respect, to agree to disagree, and it kind of prohibits like a more dialectical approach with the religion, where it's we shouldn't be afraid to, if you believe in God, to explore your thoughts on it and your theories, and to try and prove it, right? And then
Yeah.
to have a conversation. We shouldn't, the people who don't believe in God also shouldn't be afraid to defend their position, and if they have trouble doing so, they might grow as a person. That's a better way
Yeah,
to treat religion than to say we need to condemn people.
yeah, absolutely. I agree, man.
So maybe we should
Real quick,
move on here, but sorry, go ahead.
no, dude. I'm just enjoying this conversation with you, man. This depth thought is just awesome. But I wanted to make a quick moment to give Indy a shout out in the chat.
Oh,
Hey,
nice.
Indy, good to see you. Glad you made it.
Yeah, well, everything, yeah, how's it going? You need to troll the stream. Yeah, the chat's been going, and kill your egregores. Good to see you. I have, maybe I should check in because you guys have been just chatting away over here. So I don't know if I try
I
and,
think they're enjoying the chat too, man, because they're chiming in too. I think everyone's getting into it. It's a really great conversation to have, dude.
well, I'm glad to be able to like host a chat room here where people can interact and enjoy themselves there. So let me just kind
Well,
of try and look up for a few choice comments here, and then you go ahead and whatever you got something to say there.
yeah. What I wanted to say was, as one of the viewers of the show, I greatly appreciate that you give us a platform where we can come and share our ideas and you interact with us. As one of the viewers of your show, I really appreciate it, man, and I thank you.
No, no problem. I appreciate you guys. You guys kind of give me some some friends there, some parasocials to hang out with, right? And you guys really make it a lot easier to cope with those those tougher times, right? So
Right on. Yeah, indeed. So while you're going through that, man, let me ask you this: with the information you brought us today about this brain in a box, how would capitalism play out with the ability to use this thing? If I worded that question properly.
sorry, was that? Can't split my attention too well. Go say it again.
No, no, it's fine, dude. My question to you is, how would capitalism abuse this brain in a box? I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah. So that's where I had this other article here, quantum computing in capitalism. So that's a bit of a different thing. You're asking about the how would the capitalists abuse the brain box? I would think that they, because I think somewhere in the article, a guy made a comment. He was saying it was like a literal, like a body in a box, right? So I'm just saying that they will use these to create like a robotic slave kind of thing to get it to do all this labor,
Yeah.
uh, to kind of put like the Marx's labor theory of value, whatever, put the final nail into that coffin or whatever, and kill that theory out completely. Because if you can, the whole goal is to erase the need for human labor completely. That would make us obsolete, and then they would be able to pick and choose which human beings that they want to allow to exist, and the rest of us, they literally would not care. They would find a way to kill us. That's conspiratorial. So that speculative. I feel like that's the kind of people these ruling class people are, right?
Dude, I completely agree with you. I feel like if we ever became obsolete to them, they would get rid of us. I mean, look at the way they think of us now in a corporate capitalist entity. We aren't people. We're just workers. We're digits. We're numbers. So one day they'll be like, oh, we need to hire all these people. The next day they'll be like, oh, we need to fire all these people. They don't care. And in the future, if they have these brain in the boxes and it could take your job, they don't care if they replace you. This person or this box can now do your job, do it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, won't need no breaks, won't need anything. And they don't even have to pay them. No health insurance, no 401ks. They don't care about it. If they could not pay you, they would. And if we reach that point where humanity becomes obsolete, we're done, dude. We're no longer living in any form of economic system. We are living in prison, a
Yeah.
prison of our own creation.
Yeah. There, what I worry also is about the evolutionary um, toll that it's going to take on the human, like uh, like the path of our evolution. Because if we don't get completely wiped out, those who do survive, what they're going to do, like, you understand how important our work, the work that we're actually actively doing every day, is to maintaining our metabolism and our, like, our evolutionary stability, right?
Mhm.
Genetically. And so then the less physical work that we're doing, the more that we're just, the only work that we do is to maintain the robots that do the work for us,
Mhm.
then our body becomes obsolete, and then we will evolve into ways that will make it less and less useful. And we can
Mhm.
already see with, like, there's that smartphone, I think everyone forgets by now. There's a bone in people's neck that's been changing because of how people have the smartphone all the time. So that's just a small example.
No, it's true, man. Yeah, our bodies are not designed. Our bodies are literally designed to make us survive. Since Neanderthal days, our body has only adjusted to the stress and punishment we put it under, and it adapts and it grows. If we no longer need that portion of our bodies will discard it because it doesn't need it for you to survive anymore. It's the same reason we don't have gills. It's the same reason we don't have webbed feet. We don't need them to survive anymore. At one point, when we no longer need muscles, first thing that's going to happen is our life expectancies are going to get super short because a lot of the muscle tissues that we have need to be worked out. You need to work out. Otherwise, your muscles begin to atrophy and then you get skin and bones. You get nothing. And
Yeah.
that's eventually what would happen is if we rely on these machines to do everything for us and all we do is sit down and watch TV like in fucking um, idiocracy, our bodies are going to decompose. We're going to look like aliens, man, where we're all little sticks with big heads.
Or like the fat people in the chairs in the Wall-E movies. Remember
Yeah,
that?
man. Yeah,
There's only one
exactly.
movie, but yeah. Uh, but there's two paths there that, broadly speaking, we can either advance the technology and then struggle to maintain our natural biology, or what the path that seems to be being forced on us is to do the transhumanist thing, where, well, if the body becomes obsolete, then you just mechanize it and then worry about how to maintain that. But then the more that you turn everything into a machine, all the minerals have to come out of the ground at some point to maintain that. Like, at some point, I don't think we're going to appreciate having. You're going to have to start to recycle, find a way to genuinely recycle all this stuff.
Unless
Otherwise,
they
you're going to
find
run
a
out of
way,
minerals. Go
unless
ahead.
they find a way to grow it, Michael. And
Yeah.
what can be grown, plentiful, and is already proven to be able to work with combining technology. You just showed us the article not no more than 20 seconds ago.
Yeah. Well, actually, that else you saying that reminded me of something I was thinking earlier today about one way they should be trying to solve the climate crisis with mineral, with the resource problems, wherever, rather than extraction. Like, you know how they can create diamonds in the lab.
Yeah.
Shouldn't they be focusing on how to create the rest of the minerals they need in the lab, and then you don't need to extract them anymore? But
You're
but I
brilliant,
shouldn't
dude.
I shouldn't say some things, right? You give them ideas.
Well, the only one I know of that we cannot create is gold. And this is all this is all physics stuff that I've been told by other physicists is that when gold is created, it requires an explosion of stars in order to create the gas that eventually combines and creates gold. and it's not something that we can create without literally exploding stars. So, dude, it's physics is cool once you start thinking about it, but I'm too dumb to figure it out, dude.
Well, that's one of those. That's the amazing thing about scientists. As much as they can do horrific, scary shit, wherever they are really good at taking those kinds of statements and saying, "Oh yeah, I'll bet you're wrong."
Yeah, yeah, for real.
So let me just read this real quick. This article, I'll preface, was interesting. I was just doing my little Google searches, looking for whatever things I might, whatever fish I might catch, and then I found this article, this link. I clicked on it, and it said that the article was deleted by the author. So, let me check the archive, see if it's still there. So, luckily, it is. I'm like, why would you be deleted? It's only from 2022. He's already decided. She doesn't. I feel like that would be. I don't want to come out against these capitalists because it's already too late. So I better keep my fucking mouth shut, or whatever, so I can have a job. So, this is from Abigail Goldwater. In the shadowy realm of quantum computing, a Pandora's box of ethical dilemmas beckons, a siren's call to the thinkers, scientists, and technocrats of our time. This emerging force holds within it the promise of revolutionizing computation itself, offering a tantalizing glimpse into the prospect of solving seemingly insurmountable global challenges like climate change and world hunger. Yet lurking beneath the surface of this quantum sea are the treacherous ethical tides demanding vigilant navigation to ensure that this power is wielded responsibly. Foremost among these ethical quandaries is the specter of heightened surveillance. Quantum computing's unparalleled prowess in swiftly processing vast troves of data bestows upon authorities and corporations the capacity to surveil individuals with a precision hitherto unimaginable. The erosion of personal privacy looms large, threatening the very fabric of our autonomy, while the potential for oppressive policies loiters in the shadows. The technology in the wrong hands could empower existing power structures to further tighten their grip, creating an abyss of inequality. Yet the labyrinth of ethical concerns doesn't end there. The monopolization of quantum computing by a select cadre of corporate giants casts a long and ominous shadow. As the technology's commercial viability swells, the keys to its kingdom are poised to rest in the hands of these corporate titans, setting the stage for an unequal distribution of its boundless benefits. The result? A digital oligarchy dictating the terms of access, deepening the chasms of power and privilege. Adding to this intricate web of ethical conundrums is the capitalist lens through which quantum computing is viewed. In an era where profit maximization reigns supreme, the technology's widespread availability may be co-opted to bolster the interests of the capitalist elite. In this vision, quantum might serve as a tool of prosperity for the few rather than a force for solving humanity's most pressing problems. And they'll use that mirage of, we'll solve world hunger for you guys, and then never fucking do it. They don't have to. So.
Well, look at right now. They could solve world hunger right now. Will they do it? Absolutely not. It's not cost effective.
Yep. Exactly. Like, why are they trying to send anything to Mars when, first and foremost, if you have a technological solution to world hunger, develop that first.
Mm-hmm. Well, Neil deGrasse Tyson says that guy's is an op, dude. He's an obvious op, but he says something that I think is rather brilliant. Is when Elon was talking about, oh, we're gonna terraform Mars and we're gonna go live on Mars. Neil deGrasse Tyson said one thing that I thought was brilliant. Why on earth would we travel billions of miles to another planet, terraform it, and go colonize that planet? If you have the technology to terraform a planet, you could fix this planet. You don't need to go anywhere else.
Except, what is that an argument for? It's subtle, but he's advocating for geoengineering to solve the climate crisis instead of stopping the usage of the fossil fuels. We'll dim the sky or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, we'll put diamonds in the atmosphere.
So he's an op. I agree, right?
Yep. Well, he is most definitely an op. Have you ever heard of his speeches on nuclear weapons? According to him, nuclear weapons are no longer dangerous. We have new neutron bombs that don't have fallout. So if you want to sit there and go postal and nuke the entire world, go ahead. There's no fallout. There's nothing to worry about anymore.
Well, I mean, I don't know if they actually have these neutron bombs there, but that's just such an irresponsible, idiotic comment there. And it doesn't mean that they're not going to use the old dirty bombs because they have them and they want to use up the cheap ones first, you know.
Yeah. Oh,
So
sorry to interrupt you, man.
well, that's okay. I just have that last little paragraph. I'll just read it up, and then did you have any articles or videos or anything to share? Or?
No, man, I didn't bring anything.
That's
Honestly, I
okay.
was kind of surprised that you asked me to co-host with you, so I appreciate the invitation. Thanks.
No, I've been meaning to see if you were wanting to come on anyway, and then you had offered at some point that if I ever needed to reach out, and then Abby's been away the past few weeks, so I figured this seems like the right time to reach out. So appreciate you.
Right on, man. Anytime, dude. Well, not anytime.
Whenever you can, right? So
Right.
maybe we should have you on. I don't know if talk about anarchism or something. 'Cause that's it's not something I've really talked about much, but a lot of communists like to take a big shit on anarchists and stuff, and anarchists really don't like the communists, right? And then we have a bigger enemy to fight, I think. So I feel like there's some ground to work with there. I'm not sure how much you whatever you consider yourself an anarchist.
I consider myself an anarchist to the point where I feel there is no economic theory that can ever be created that can never work because the human condition is involved.
So
Any
you're
like
like hardcore anarchist, basically.
yeah, pretty much. Like okay, there's a lot of people that I'm sorry to go here, man, because I know you're a big communist. You like to talk about communism
Go
and
ahead.
such.
We should talk about it, right? Whatever. Right.
Right on. Thank you. So all I really say is that in the past, communism has shown that it itself has potential to be corrupted. It just didn't have the level of development that capitalism had because capitalism could develop further and faster because it abused people a lot more, and therefore it could collect resources a lot quicker than capitalism can. In fact, that's the theory that Ronald Reagan used to quote unquote crush the USSR was we'll outspend them because they cannot keep up with our economic prowess. We can make more money than they can because we can abuse our people more than they can. So
Yeah. Well,
communism is great. It's theoretically wonderful. But once you start adding human beings into the equation and the intrinsic nature, the primal nature of humans to want to preserve themselves leads to greed, leads to corruption. There's no system in my mind you, and this is what makes me an anarchist, is there's no system you can ever create, no blended system. You can't combine capitalism and communism. Eventually, it'll get corrupt. Why? Because humans are involved. Humans will always want a war, will always want to kill each other, will always want more power. It's been in our entire history of mankind. Even before, even before technology came along, even before society developed, when we were all cavemen, we were still killing each other, trying to get over on each other. Why? Because we wanted to survive. It all breeds back to that survival instinct, is that we want to survive. In order to survive, we have to get stronger. In order to get stronger, we have to, unfortunately, unalive and get rid of the people that could be potentially hazardous to us. It's the same thing with humanity today. We're easily corruptible. Look at capitalism here, man. You get people that go in there thinking that they're going to be altruistic and change the world, and what happens? They get easily corrupted if they weren't already corrupted before they even went in, man. And then every single one of them eventually lets the greed get to them. The greed gets to you. You want more money. Let's take for example, Michael. Let's take for example that somehow in America we managed to convince enough people to give up on capitalism and let's develop a new economic system. Hell, let's say we convinced everyone, hey, communism is a better system. Let's switch to communism. Are we just going to get rid of all of the politicians that are in power and all the powers that be that already control this country? Or are they going to adapt to the communist system, invade and infiltrate that communist system, and then just corrupt it in whichever way they can, because that's what they want to do. They eventually want to make the system their own, like they did with capitalism. Do you think that's a potential?
Yeah, well, that's a good point to make. I feel like that's one of the uh, like a lot of people who consider themselves communists, where who do a lot of the reading about the theory, they kind of become too much of a cheerleader for it in order to not be painted as an anti-communist or something. It's really difficult to be a communist and try to be critical of the theory as well as self-critical of yourself. Like maybe I'm getting it wrong. Maybe what did Marx get wrong? What's wrong with Marxism, Leninism, whatever? What do we have to? What's the baby and what's the bathwater, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is where I think that you're right. There has been a lot of issues with corruption and stuff in communism stuff. And when you're talking about there, um, the the issue about like the capitalists, unless you get rid of them, I guess, uh, you always have them just plotting and waiting for their time to reassert themselves and bring everything crashing down. And that is definitely one of the issues. I think, like you can try and genocide any group, including capitalists, I guess. Once you get started, they see what you're trying to do to them. They try to go into hiding. Are you sure you're going to get them all? Everything kind of
Mm-hmm.
unwinds unless you get them all. Genocide's never going to be the answer to a problem you have with an opposing group, even though it seems like at some point you can't actually reconcile things with these people where they're too far gone, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a bit of an ableism to that. Even our worst enemies are no longer human beings, right? And then as soon as we dehumanize them, we don't need to treat them with the same rights as other people because they're not doing that for anyone else anyways. But this is the issue about like the ACP guys purity fetish issue, as
Mm-hmm.
far as I think they have a good point with that to a degree, but I think they kind of get carried away thinking that he's found some kind of revolutionary idea or whatever. Like that's one among many factors that's a problem, where people trying to create communism will have a purity fetish issue where they
Mm-hmm.
will not be able to erect it because they're obsessed with some idealistic image of communism that they have in their mind, and they won't actually really be able to attain it, and they won't be able to admit to a people around them that it's like kind of like a pyramid scheme, like it's just an illusion, an idea that it can't actually be brought to fruition, but you can't bring yourself to admit that, whatever. These are kind of anti-communist points that you see a lot of fascists and capitalists will be using to discredit the idea and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
My perspective as far as anarchism, I kind of come from having an interest trying to decide what theory is better, anarchism or communism, because I already kind of was never really huge like liberal conservative kind of pro-capitalist. I kind of always growing up felt like this system is bullshit, right? But the issue
Agreed.
was that communism's not obviously, use your eyes, right? It's not working here. How do we make it work here? And it seems impossible. So it's like a
Mm-hmm.
really big thing to sort out if you're going to make communism work. Or we have a whole lot of like a really difficult problem to solve as far as to how to practically make it happen in the real world. And some of the issues that you were talking about are the things that are stopping us. Other issues are this purity fetish issue. My kind of rebuttal to, I think, is Carlos Garita, who came up with this purity fetish thing, is this integrity commodification. That's my term that I'm coming up with. So when we are struggling with trying to convince people that that we should and can build communism, and the only thing holding us back is our mentality. Um, Often, what we resort to in order to get around the purity fetish is we'll just commodify our own integrity, or we'll encourage other people to commodify their integrity. So it's like um, if you are being too much of a purist about what you're willing to do to make the revolution happen, that's what's stopping it from happening. So you'll
I
have to
dig it.
corrupt yourself to make it happen. It's a slippery slope.
I dig it. Yeah, I dig it. All
So,
right.
but I
Yeah.
think anarchism being on paper theoretically is a better system than communism. But communism to me is same thing, like a transitionary phase like socialism. And so you need to have, in order to get rid of capitalism, you need to have socialism. In order to get rid of socialism, you need to have communism. In order to get rid of communism, you need to have anarchism. But this is a bit, to me, it makes perfect sense. And it's in congruence with Marx's like stages theories of history.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of there's so many different things to sort out as far as what was Marx right about and what was he wrong about, right? So the idea that human history progresses through these different stages, people can argue that his idea has been falsified, demonstrated not to be true. But it seems to me like we had gone from a hunter-gatherer society to early imperialism, whatever, with empires, like when we learned agriculture, right?
Yeah.
And this is what I think has created a lot of the bloodshed, because if you go back far enough, we had to be violent in order to protect ourselves from nature. We would literally get eaten by a freaking
survival. Yeah.
panther, right? So once we became evolved enough to master that challenge, the biggest challenge that we then had to face was each other. And we did not deal with that challenge very well. We descended into basically genocidal behavior for thousands of years now, right? So that's why it's so important to be actually against genocide now, because you can have this basic two ways to think about it. You can say that human nature is immutable and it's impossible to overcome, meaning that we will always be this genocidal bloodlust freak and we will never overcome it, and we might as well not try and be better human beings because we cannot be. And that's kind of the conservative mindset. And the liberal mindset is, if we work hard enough at it, we'll eventually attain some kind of utopia, right?
Yeah, that's why we don't have liberals. That's why we don't have liberals in our political system, man. Because none of them think like that. They're only thinking about raising the next dollar.
Well, but then they used to maybe. I think what's happened with a lot of liberals is they can't admit that they don't believe in their theory anymore or whatever. So then they have to keep up that front. So they become conservatives a long time ago when they sided with the capitalists against the communists, what liberals always were basically, right? But then when communism emerges, socialist thought emerges, and they continue to make up reasons to have some little niche, what they call liberalism. The more that history unfolds with all the evidence that comes with it, you have to abandon a theory at some point, and based on what the evidence is telling you, or in your actions you abandon the theory, but not in your words.
I dig it. Yeah, no, that's brilliant, dude. The only reason I ask is because I am not a fool. I don't fool myself. Although I call myself an anarchist, I truly deep down inside know that anarchism will never work. Anarchism can never work simply because if we're ever in, we have proven to ourselves as a human species that if we do not have rules to govern us, we will become animals and we will be ruthless. It's in our history. If we ever want to look into that, go far back, go through every section of our historical lives, and you will see that at any point in time when we didn't have rules to govern us, we were ruthless animals. You can go back to the Dark Ages before religion really took over, and there was no gods, there were no rules, there was no laws. People were savages. They were ruthless. That's what will end up happening in anarchism, because once you get rid of all the rules and we have to take care of each other, there'll be a new hierarchy. There'll be the silverback that has to take care of everyone in the community, because now we no longer have a government to take care of us. We have to take care of each other. Then you have people that will get selfish and be like, oh, this person isn't doing as much as this other person, or why isn't this person doing as much as I'm doing? And then we'll start bickering, and then war starts to break out between our own communities. It's an ideal that I know it's a bit childish and kind of foolish, but deep down inside, that's what I would want from humanity, is that we all realize that we're fucking human beings and we are all living on this planet and we have to share it, instead of sitting here knocking each other down and weighing each other down, and making sure that nobody else can come up. We should be helping each other come up together, so we nobody has to struggle. And that's a silly, childish ideal, but it's something that I hold dear in my heart, man. That's what makes me an anarchist, is because I know none of these systems will ever do it. Capitalism is never going to think about the people, they're only going to think about the profits. Communism will think about the people as long as there's profits involved. Socialism will lead into communism, and anarchism is just fucking nuts. So that's what I'm saying, man.
Well, that's why I'm
just a
saying you
fancy
kind of
kid.
need to have communism before you have anarchism. I think part of the issue is that people are trying to envision what anarchism would look like, but we're only able to use the experiences that we've had under capitalism to try and understand what like the potential for human nature. Because I think to some degree you're right. Like we're not really able to see far enough into the future. If we ever manage to have communism and anarchism, if I happen to be correct, and this all happens to unfold, there's probably some other stage beyond that that we cannot perceive because it's too far around the bend, and we'll never really be able to see it in our lifetime. So, but I think the issue with communism is being that they understand there's a necessity to be able to utilize the state to try and kind of clean up the problems that the state has created, to correct the balance, and then eventually the state would be able to wither away as it becomes obsolete, which seems kind of like a libertarian sort of thing to say. People kind of don't like that maybe, but I'm just saying the idea is to, like, one of the hard things for communism would be to recognize when it is time to let that state fall away, because when it's about the way that people treat each other and the way that we can educate each other and ourselves about how to be a better person. Like, it's not necessarily the route to go to technologically. You can force people to get along if we put a brain chip in them and take away their aggression or whatever. But if it anarchism would be possible to me without being some kind of on some idealistic hopium, whatever, if we can actually have education systems that genuinely teach people like a positive way to be in the world and to behave in relation to other people in a harmonious way that provides. It's about the we don't see the fruits of the labor, so the theory sounds nice in theory, but in practice, if we actually get the gains from working together peacefully,
Mm-hmm.
then we should be convinced by the evidence that this is the way to do it. And you would think that people would just naturally start to do the things that would like be the best choice moving forward. And I think the best way to do that would be for people to put it into the past, the idea that the individual, we have to find the smartest individual and listen to them. We have to teach people the collective thinking, wherever we apply a dialectic in such a rigorous way that we can come up with solutions to our problems together and implement those solutions together. And we don't have to have this fetish, this hyper focus on who will be the ultimate dominator leader, that I don't have to think for myself anymore. We'll let this person, whatever, Il Duce, tell us what to do. Like,
Nice one. No, great point, man. Great point. See, this is the kind of conversations uh, I would like to have with more communists. But anytime I have a conversation with other communists, especially when they're very fervent, we can't have this conversation because then they automatically feel like you're attacking communism. And that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get a better understanding of who you are and your logic behind what communism is, because everyone's idea of communism is different, especially the more you talk with other people, man. It's crazy how vast it is.
yeah, well, this is what I have problems with communists too, right? Uh, I'm having a hard time getting established with a group of other comrades because maybe I think a little bit too independently or something, or haven't done enough reading of this, like actual primary sources and stuff like this, which are valid criticisms in their own way. But then what I like what I was with the ACP guys is a good example, right? They're feeling that their approach, they're being more belligerent, is kind of necessary, right? You need to be a fighter. You can't be such a wishy-washy, whatever, trying to be so psychological about things and listen to people and care about people's feelings, whatever. How the hell is that going to get us out of our crisis, whatever? I think people are we're trying to run so fast to get out of everything. We're still stuck in everything because they convince themselves that thinking way too fast, whatever. We got to do this, we got to do that, whatever. We don't do that, we're not going to get anywhere, right? And they are keeping themselves. It's like trying to untie yourself by just trying to thrash out of like the ropes or whatever. And the more you do that, the tighter it gets. You have to calmly figure out which part of the rope to untie first in order to get out, right? So that's a primary contradiction versus secondary contradiction metaphor. If you want to go get like insider baseball about it or whatever, right? They kind of come at you. We don't have to listen to the lesser issues with the anarchists and the indigenous and the black people. What we care about what their theories are. Their theories are inferior to ours, right? The secondary contradictions can sometimes be potentially counterintuitively more important to deal with first than the primary contradiction because it helps you solve the primary contradiction. So you have to untie the harder, like the initial, like I'm saying, rather than thrash around. The primary contradiction is you're stuck, tied up in a rope. You need to get out. The secondary contradiction is you need to figure out what part of the rope to unravel first, and then you can argue whatever. I've got them mixed up, but like if you're if you're drowning, we'll add a little more to the metaphor, right? Primary contradiction is to get out of the water before you drown, whatever, but you have to untie the rope first. So you can argue all day about what is the actual primary contradiction, but the point is that you have two problems you have to solve no matter what. You can't just solve one and call it the end of the day, right? So,
yep.
Yeah.
No, man, I totally agree with you, man. I can't even come back with anything. You made a very solid point.
Well, I'm kind of have these thoughts brewing up with these little arguments I've been having with these other people, right? So I'm a little bit prepared with what I want to say on that, and then you just kind of hear it for the first time. You'll have something to say in a day or two, right?
Yep. Well, I know the very first knot we got to undo, and that's capitalism. Unfortunately, man. And
so that's what I find people can all agree on, right? We can all diagnose that it's capitalism that's the issue, except for these lunatics who are like, no, you guys don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Capitalism is working just fine right now. It's like only when you ignore the suffering of literally everybody else can you say that. But
well, a lot of those people, man, those are the same people that don't care if you're suffering. The people that are okay with capitalism and think that think capitalism working are people that have the system working for them just enough to where they're not struggling, where they're comfortable, and that comfortableness that they have is what gives them that theory that, oh, capitalism works. Look, it's working for me. I'm in a good situation. I'm heavily in debt, but barely hanging up over water. But what's the big deal? Capitalism's working. You know,
it's always
they don't know any other thing.
It's so hypocritical because anyone who gets that to that level of comfort where they don't have to work as hard as everyone else, right? They then don't have that pressure forcing them to be successful, and then they become lazy and contradictory to what they say that everyone else needs to do to make what their comfort like possible, right?
Right. But the whole thing about pulling up their bootstraps and getting to work is their logic, and this is what I would feel their logic would be. If you made that argument that, hey, you gotten to a point of comfortableness where now you're becoming lazy and you don't want to do the work that needs to be done in order to reach a position where you're at, all they're going to turn around and say is, why should I work any harder? I already did all my hard work and I'm where I'm at. You need to put in your hard work so you can be where I'm at, which is a fallacy because you can work as hard as you fucking want. You'll never reach his point unless you're willing to abuse and take advantage of other people, because that's what capitalism is. It's an inherent predatory system where you cannot get further ahead without taking out value from someone else. That's how capitalism works. You abuse the value of someone else, you take their value and make it your own. We do that through work. Like a lot of communism say, we are the sources of the production. So we should seize the means of production so that we can share it together, because we're the ones that are making all of that value. You guys are the ones that point out that all of our value is getting taken out and given to one particular person. So
Yeah.
I can sit here and work my ass off. In fact, I do. I sit here and put 10, 12-hour days every day trying to barely eke out an existence. I'm working fucking hard. I'm working more than 40 hours a week. I'm paying my fucking taxes. I'm paying my bills on time. Why can't I get ahead? Why? Because you guys sold me a capitalist lie, a dream that can never be achieved. Because that same person that you're talking about that sat there and got comfortable and got greedy and said, hey, I'm good where I'm at. You guys are the ones that need to work hard to get to where I'm at. I can never get to his point. Why? Because I'm not willing to be cutthroat the way he was to get to where he is at now.
Yeah, and that's not a weakness, right? It's actually a huge strength that we need to encourage. It's a critical mass that people have. Even though there's not that many capitalists, there's still enough of them and their supporters that they outnumber us where it matters, so that they
Yep.
can make all of people work like that, right? But then this is where I think a lot of people have a hard time admitting what the communists are completely correct about, and that whatever that's the baby in the bathwater that they can take away from the communists, whatever, if they need to. But what we need to do is this class struggle thing. We need to see people through the lens of class, because of the way that this system has been made to, like, that's the way that the ruling class has looks at people, right? They divide people in classes or whatever, and then they act like they're not doing that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and then, so in order for us to overcome the issue, we need to stop fighting so much about culture war issues, whatever, disagreeing over ideology, because there are things to disagree about, or to at least debate about, that haven't quite been demonstrated who's actually correct about it yet. But then,
Mm-hmm.
so if anarchists work with communists to class struggle to actually fix their wage issues, right? Then we can, amongst ourselves, work on the debate about, like, well, the issue is often communists are too oppressive, right? Or and then the anarchists are too idealistic, right? They their ideas will work in theory, but they don't in practice. Right? People say the same thing about communism, wherever, but communists say that about anarchist theory, right?
Yeah.
You even
Yeah.
kind of said the same thing yourself, right? So there's things we have to actually put a lot of deep thought into, and we have to kind of bounce ideas off each other to get that eureka moment about, yeah, that's a big problem, wherever, but if we do this together, we
Mm-hmm.
can overcome it.
Right. And unfortunately, that's not something I think can be done between anarchists and capitalists, because, or capitalists and communists. It can never be done, because at the end of the day, capitalism will want to have that predatory nature, where they'll be like, oh, you guys want to seize the means of production? Okay, cool. You can own this company. But one person has to have the name title. One of them has to be the CEO. One of them has to be the head honcho. Well, you just created a hierarchy. You just took away all the communism involved in it. And they did it slyly so that they can get their capitalist ideals in and then slowly corrupt it with capitalist values. The I think anarchists and communists can work better together, because it's actually leading towards the same direction. We want everyone to get their worth. If you're sitting there working your ass off and doing everything you have to do and hustling just to get ahead, imagine if you did all of that hustling and actually did come ahead. That's what communism would eventually lead you to, is, hey,
Yeah,
we're all fucking working hard. We should all benefit from it. And then you'll get the capitalists will start putting that little earworm in people, like, oh no, that would never work, because eventually someone's not going to work as hard as the other. And that's a big capitalist argument against communism is, oh, we can't do communism because if everyone is the owner and everyone's putting in their fair share, some people are lazy. Some people won't work as hard as the other person. Some people will work harder than others. Why can't they get more if they're working harder? No,
yeah.
that's a
Well, there's
falsity.
always
That's
going to be people that are lazier than others. There's always going to be disability, right? This is the other thing.
indeed.
Not even about, like, there's just I always like one of the certain quotes that you hear or whatever kind of gets you into it in the first place, right? And one of the major quotes by Marx I've always stood by is that from uh, from everyone's ability to each other's needs. I butchered that, right? But that's what it is, right? It's like from each their ability to each their needs, right? So you satisfy everyone's actual needs, that you take care of that, whatever. You don't leave people behind, whatever, because they're disabled and stuff. But you don't get to just like people. It's not you don't get to. This is where the problems are. We try and get authoritarian about it, right? It was like you don't. Society's not better off by encouraging people who can do more that they must do more. But what I found when I stopped working, right, myself, right, you start to fall apart, whatever. You start to not be yourself when you're not working, whatever. So everyone has some kind of value to bring to society, some mark that they want to leave on the world, right? So if we get rid of these billionaires, whatever, right, that's then you have people who can do their work, whatever, a lot like they can actually fulfill what they're trying to do. There's so many people's dreams that are not that could be achieved but are just not allowed to happen because a handful of people are allowed to have their specific dreams so that millions of people don't get to have their smaller dreams, right?
Yes.
What I think that communists like to do from a propaganda problem, they like to explain to people how much we need to get rid of billionaires so that we can all make more money, and then we'd have prosperity like that. Then we would have a problem, like you're saying. You're saying it would be the capitalists in waiting that would sneakily fuck with us, whatever. Maybe let's go with a different scenario, whatever. What if we actually have a situation where we convince people not to be capitalists, right? And everyone's on board and we achieve some kind of communism, but we still have money. So that we have to solve the issue about moneyless, statelessness, classlessness, right? Because I hear some people like these ACP guys are saying we can be revisionist about that or whatever, or whoever came up with that idea was not a real communist or whatever the fuck, whatever. We can still have communism and still keep money and still keep the state and still keep class. And that's not, I don't think you actually achieved any communism. At some point, you need to tackle the problem of getting rid of the money. So once you achieve prosperity for people by using the money, just like the state, you need to use policy to come up with ways to get rid of it while maintaining those work relations necessary for the reproducing society. But that's not something that happens quickly. That's something that should be done very carefully over decades. But if you can breed this massive money supply over these centuries, you can do the same kind of thing in reverse, and you can kind of plan it to do it in a way that doesn't destroy everything.
Yes. Hell yeah, dude.
If we work at it, like we have to actually believe we can, and then figure out how to do it, and not just sit around thinking our belief is going to make it happen.
Oh, dude. Yeah. Fucking shit. I love your mentality, dude. You're a very positive thinker.
Well, thanks. Well, that's where I appreciate being someone saying that my thought is positive, because I often think to myself that I'm quite a negative person, but maybe I'm just at that turning point in my life where I'm starting to recognize the value of positive thinking, because I had a lot of issues. A lot of people are making arguments that capitalism should stay, and they're using positive thinking to make the arguments. It's like, that's toxic positivity.
Yeah, that's self-destruction, actually, man. You're convincing yourself that you need poison. You have at it, man. Drink all the Clorox you want.
Yeah. So I'm sorry about everyone in the chat there. Just kind of been going about. You guys, I haven't seen what you guys are saying. I did see Jacqueline had a question. She said, what are anarcho-communists? Or is that an ideology that can only exist in theory? I think that it's an ideology that exists in practice. There's plenty of anarcho-communists out there, but there's not that many communists to begin with in the West anyway. There's even less anarcho-communists. There's more anarchists than anarcho-communists, I'd say. But anarchism and communism, whatever, they have more natural, mutual, like they're not mutually exclusive, whatever. I don't understand people who call themselves anarcho-capitalists, because I just don't think they understand anarchism or capitalism, because you can't actually be an anarcho-capitalist.
No, it's a oxymoron. It's completely impossible, man.
But I think you can be an anarcho-communist, but more in this specific sense, like I'm saying, or whatever. You have to recognize, like, respect the actual theory that's been developed by whole groups of people instead of just cherry picking people's ideas or whatever. Like, I think it works if you do communism first and then anarchism. The problem with that is, how do you get the anarchists to take the orders of communists, in a sense, when what they really want is for there to be no hierarchy? Because if you're going to maintain the state to get rid of the state, you're going to maintain hierarchy to get rid of hierarchy.
Indeed. Yep. It's a self-feeding snake, man. Indeed. Yeah.
But if there's a way out of it, we should not discard these ideas, because people want to get rid of the ideas completely, but they have no alternative to capitalism. But they, like, without an alternative to capitalism, they're going to kind of just revert to not being happy with it, but they're going to make it work, right? So
Yep. They'll eventually be like, oh, this isn't working. It's taking too long. Or not even that it's taking too long. Oh, this isn't working at all. We need to hurry up and get back to capitalism when things were working.
So Rondo said, what's funny is all these theories are children of the Enlightenment. So I think you're kind of saying that all these ideas kind of come from Europe and that age of enlightenment, so-called, while they're in the middle of colonizing Africa and stuff. This is where it's not just anarchism that communists need to talk with and work with. It's also the decolonial theorists. This is kind of my thinking over the past few weeks, months, or whatever, trying to understand, because there's the issue as a white settler Marxist or whatever, right? Like, how do I bridge that gap with the decolonial theory, people who have criticisms of Marxism, or who aren't orthodox Marxist in a sense, who a lot of the people who are, like, I keep referring back to these ACP guys, but there's other groups, right, that are they're settler Marxists, right? But then they're happy to kind of, I don't really like decolonial theories, bullshit, whatever. It's not Marxist enough for me, so I'm not going to listen to the indigenous issues,
Right.
to the black issues, because they're not going to be able to solve their own problems, because they don't want to recognize that we need to be Marxist in order to solve, like, the same. They're treating them, the indigenous and the LGBT, like all these, everyone, as if they're never going to solve their problems, just like they treat anarchists or whatever. You're never going to solve their problems unless they do Marxism first, whatever. So that seems potentially like chauvinism, unless they're technically actually right, that everybody else needs to give up their anti-communism and just try it, and they'll like it, like broccoli. Like,
There's a term for that. It's called conforming. And conformity was never a big thing in communism, at least from what I remember.
yeah. Well, that's one of the issues about, if you want to actually make it work, whatever. They like to argue, if it's gonna work, like different nations have to come up with their different paths to socialism, like Chinese socialism with Chinese characteristics, or whatever. And Stalinism was, we got to have socialism in one country first, whatever. That was their path, right? So I think that the path to socialism in America, North America, we have to square the circle of individualism and collectivism, because I think there's such an individualist mentality here. We need to figure out how to incorporate that into our approach to socialism, which is kind of antithetical to what people want to do. They just kind of want to teach people how to think collectively, but you have to teach people how to think collectively as individuals. Like, we want people to have their own critical thinking and not to have groupthink. But the problem with that is, when it comes time to agree, when we're all such unique thinkers, how are we going to agree to disagree to make something happen, instead of well, now we're fucked because we're just going to argue? So
That's a very good question, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's If I could answer that question, I would have solved that problem already. But it's one that needs to be answered if we're ever to move forward. Because you're right. If we just sit here and dismiss each other because of like, oh, you're not. I don't want to talk to you because here. I'll give you this example. I don't want to talk to you because you're a fucking Trump supporter. There's a bunch of that going on right now. Fuck you. I don't want to talk to you because you're a Trump supporter. Or fuck you. I don't want to talk to you. You're a Biden bro or whatever. It's jingoism at its worst, man. And if if we don't if we don't come to terms with our ability to negotiate with each other, we'll never get anywhere. We need to be able to, even if you freaking hate someone to their guts, you hate them so much, but they agree with you on this point. Okay, we're gonna work together on this point. I fucking hate you, dude, but I need to work with you because I want this done. And that a lot of that needs to happen here. Like if these dumbass fucking Biden and Trump supporting Democrats and liberals and Republicans and fucking conservatives would just shut the fuck up about their own biases for 1 second and be like, okay, yeah, I hate that fucking liberal over there, but I agree with him on healthcare. Or hey, I fucking hate the fucking Republican over there, but I agree with him on workers' rights. These things, there's certain points where we actually can agree on. The problem is that when we get to that point, there's always someone out there that's going to be like, okay, yeah, we agree on that, but they don't agree on this over here. You need to agree on this over here before I can work with you. For example, you get a lot of that, unfortunately, in the LGBTQ community, man. And I hate to throw them under the bus like that, but when I deal with those cats, like, you either believe everything they believe or you're not an ally. Like, I don't want to be your enemy, but you're making me your enemy.
No,
And that's something that we
get
have a
that
lot of
same.
here.
I get that same problem where it's not even just like the LGBTQ people themselves; it's their allies too. They've convinced, because those people were not willing to maintain their own like individual thinking, their own critical thinking, because they're forced to, okay, you tell me what to believe and I'll believe it or whatever, and that way we won't have any problems or whatever, right? So it's like I recently had gotten booted out of the Canadian Commies Discord for disagreeing with them and pushing the matter, and I didn't really feel like I don't know if you remember, if you saw when I had John on here, right? If you know who I'm talking about, the Canadian Commie. But anyway, you can go back and look at that episode if you don't know who I'm talking about. But
Right.
so he was, for whatever reason, I'd gotten into a discussion about the puberty blockers, right? And so I had a thought to look up the question about, do they have a test, a DNA test, to demonstrate that you have the chromosomes that demonstrate that you're technically officially trans or not. And they don't actually have that DNA test. So I was like, isn't that a little bit irresponsible that they will go ask you through a checklist of questions if you feel this way or that way about something that makes you trans or whatever? Like, to be scientific about it, to be a materialist about it, you're letting someone's subjective opinion about their feelings tell you what is scientifically taking place in reality there. I think you kind of need to come up with a test to demonstrate unequivocally, objectively, that someone is what you're kind of claiming they are when you're talking about such serious, drastic changes to the body. You're like people, it results in like sterilizing people. There's always risks with surgery. These puberty blockers, long-term effects are not really proven, but there is all kinds of damaging effects that have been proven. But it's supposedly okay because the suffering of not having the changes, physical changes, wherever, allow the mental suffering of the dysmorphia or whatever is too great to allow unchecked. They might kind of self-harm or worse, right? So then it's considered ethically necessary, right, to give the puberty blockers in their argument. I'm saying I'm not entirely opposed, like, not trying to be transphobic. If people want to be trans, I feel like that's their prerogative
Right.
when they're old enough. You don't, I don't think you should be preventing people from going through puberty, because there's all kinds of people. Puberty is a very um, confusing time for people. And there are instances, like there's a group of people that they're marginalizing. This is the irony about this situation. Everyone focuses on how small of a percentage the trans are in the community, whatever. But within the trans community, there's an even smaller percentage of people who regret the transitioning and want to detransition. So if you care about the minority, you can carry on the argument to an even more microscopic level to say there's still a minority here where we need to have, if we're conscientious people and we care about these moral things like we say we do, well, these people deserve respect too, because they exist. That's the whole thing about trans people exist. Well, detransitioners exist too. And there's people who change their mind and don't go through with it and are glad that they did that, because they sort out their hormonal confusions, and there turns out they're not as trans as they thought they were, because it turns out you can think something about yourself and be wrong. Who knew, right? There's all kinds of people go through such radical perspective changes, wherever worldview changes in their lives. There's so many stories about all kinds of, I used to be whatever, a Nazi, now whatever, I'm a pastor. I don't know. Now I'm a hardcore Antifa guy or whatever, who loves gay sex and stuff. Like, people go through massive transitions in their life without changing their whole body, right? So it's of course possible that puberty should be allowed to take place. So that, and then once you've let it take place, then after you've gone through puberty, you still want to transition. Why can't, like, you can have you can vote. You can't vote until you're 18. You can't have alcohol till you're 18. This argument, I feel, is really powerful, right? But other people maybe disagree, right? You're not allowed to own a gun or whatever until you're, like, there's all these rules until you're an adult, because it's not safe. But this one thing that's so, like, completely irreversible, very safe, right? For children to be making up their mind this. And then stuff about anyway, I was talking about getting banned from it, the Canadian commie people, whatever, because I upset him, and he's all like, shut up, whatever, don't say another word. Just shutting down. That's very dialectical, right? It's like, you're not allowed to talk anymore because you're gonna be uh, disrupting the safe space I've created here for these right, whoever this protected group is, right? And it's, so now we can't work on communism anymore. We can't work about class struggle anymore, because I've done the completely unacceptable persona non grata, whatever, social murder me, please, right? Because I don't even, not even transphobic or whatever, but in their mind I will be, of course. I'm just in denial of it, right? But this is the same thing with, you get caught. Is not good to be trying to be seeing both sides of an issue if there's actually two sides to see, right?
Right.
Because there's also these other group, like the ACP guys, right? They're starting to get on the conservative train of, I don't even think these people exist at all, so they shouldn't have any of this special rights or anything at all. Whatever, we should be celebrating what Trump's doing or whatever. Just acting like there's only two biological sexes or whatever. I think that's gone too far into the other, whatever, like, you're no longer correct anymore, because now you've gone too far in the other direction.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying, man. It's a tough situation, because my thoughts on that is simply that people can do whatever the fuck they want in the privacy of their own homes, in the privacy of their own lives. You know, even if you're out in public, do whatever the fuck you want. Just leave me out of it. You live your life, all right? I'll talk with you. I'll be social with you. I'm not an asshole. I'm gonna be cool with anybody. If you want to be cool with me, I'm gonna be cool with you. If you want to do whatever the hell you want in your personal life, have at it. Do whatever you want. Don't press it on me.
Is bodily autonomy, right? At the end of the day, it's just that legal issue. If you're not going to hurt yourself or others, and this is where people saying you are hurting yourself. Okay, but then we let people get, like, you let people get breast implants,
Right.
or like they'll even, like a straight woman or whatever, they'll redo your pussy for you if you want, right? Like they'll give you a new ass, a new face, cut your nose off, or whatever, anything you
Yep.
want, right? That's fine for straight women to do. I don't think so, but I'm not going to say because I don't think you should do that to yourself that you're not allowed to do that, because that's how there's a double-edged sword to bodily autonomy. Like maybe you will get what you want with your bodily autonomy, like not getting your vaccine or whatever. That's your choice.
Right.
Maybe it will not work out for you, whatever. Maybe you will get sick because you didn't get that, whatever. But it's your choice.
Right.
Ethically, that's the right way to handle it, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you, dude. The thing I do agree with you on, though, you mentioned it, is that I, I I don't think kids have the mental capacity to make that decision when they're young. Like, I'm glad I don't have to deal with that situation. There are parents out there that do. It's very difficult, very heavy conversation to have, and I have nothing but respect for those parents that can actually have that conversation with their children, because it's not an easy one. And with that
Well,
said, they should at least sit down and tell their kids, like, hey, if this is what you're feeling, if this is how you feel about yourself, that's great. Just give it some time. When you get older and your body stops developing, or it's a good point for you to do what you need to do, then go ahead and do it. But for now, just be a kid, enjoy your childhood, because it's short, quick, and it ends real fast. And then when you're an adult, life sucks. Hold on to that. Think about that. Enjoy that. And then when you're older, and however you feel, you follow through with what you feel. That's who you are. I'm not going to question that. That's your life.
right.
But
Well,
give it
this is
some time, man.
especially a lot of people will say like there's the ones that are definitely trans, you can really tell when they're like really young, right? And then
Yeah.
it's very obvious, right? And then the rest of the people don't really need to worry about it. It's like I don't know how much that's, you gotta analyze that to see how much that's actually true, but you're gonna have to do a lot of homework to actually prove that, right? So, but what I've been seeing is they've been saying that that there's so many of these, that most of these cases are these really young people who are very obviously trans, and those are the ones that are getting the early surgeries or whatever, because it was very clear to everyone involved what was taking place. So you don't even need that test I was talking about, or whatever. What I found is that's not exactly actually what's happening. That's what's claimed is happening. And when you look at like news stories or whatever, or maybe there's the conservatives are the ones who focus on this side of the issue. So that's where a lot of the sources will be, right? But what seems to be happening is there's a lot of doctors that are not being as careful as that they said that they're, like, shocker, the doctors not being as careful as they say that they're not following the procedure they claim to be following, and they're taking people who come in as like 12-year-old 14-year-olds who's just last couple of months started having these confusing thoughts, and
Mhm.
then they're rushing them into like a surgery or whatever, or putting them on the puberty blockers right away, like only after having, they're supposed to have so many assessments over like years to really make sure that this is what the person's feeling like, whether they're what they're actually doing. After one or two appointments, they're getting them on puberty blockers, right? They're not supposed to be doing that. That's not what they were even claiming that they were going to be doing. They start doing that, like they mission creep it, right?
Yep.
And that's where you feel, that's where I say that's something's going on here, or whatever. It's not just about being woke or whatever, or respecting people's autonomy, autonomous decisions or whatever, because people are being gaslit. That's not really making an autonomous choice.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
see Gold Monarchs here. How's it going?
Oh, actually, now that we hit a quick break here, Jacqueline asked a fantastic question earlier, and I wanted to touch on it. Let me
Yeah.
see if I can find it. Mhm. Here it
Yes.
is. When we were talking earlier, she asked, "How do we change the minds of those people who might be described as temporarily embarrassed millionaires into realizing that they'll never be mega wealthy, nor should they want to be?" That is a fantastic question. I don't think we ever could. The greed would be too deep in they're sold by then that they're not going to want to give up the idea that they too themselves can become billionaires one day.
Right. So
Because
this
once
is
you
kind of,
become,
go
go ahead,
ahead.
sir.
I was saying this is kind of like a bit of a critique of what I was trying to say about what we can do is we can convince people to be communists or whatever and to give up on capitalism in a sense, and that's kind of how it will work, as opposed to trying to like force people. Like this is where I guess it's not really realistic to think that you're going to be able to like we have to convince everybody's minds, and once we've convinced everyone to change their minds, then it'll happen. Well, it'll never happen. You're never going to change all these people's minds, right? So then what kind of a system do you come up with where I guess we don't need everybody to change their mind or whatever? Well, how do you deal with those people? What they're going to do something with their thoughts or whatever, with their freedom to try and make their case for what they deserve for themselves. And we're going to have to oppress them, I guess, in order to not let them realize their dreams, because their dreams will be damning to the rest of us, whatever. It's like if there's the whole thing about using the state to get rid of the state, whatever, you have to kind of use laws to kind of oppress. We're oppressing the wrong people with the wrong laws is the idea, right? This is one of the things that people don't like about communists, whatever. They're willing to oppress people to get things done, right? They're saying we should oppress the millionaires, these people who whatever, so because their ideas will hurt people. So well, we already have laws, right, that you're not allowed to have those ideas because they hurt people. We You hear it all the time or whatever. If you're gonna like in your self-esteem groups or your other kind of doctor meetings, whatever, your psychiatrist will tell you, if you tell me you're gonna harm yourself or harm somebody else, I have to report that, right? Because you're not
Yep.
allowed to have certain ideas because they're gonna hurt people. So why aren't we applying this logic to capitalism? It gets a free pass. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
But we always come up with ways to why we deserve to be oppressive. That's the hard thing about human condition that we have, right? Like I don't know. There's all these problems or whatever, but I guess I want to be a nice person, but I guess I can't be a nice person, so I guess it means that I'm gonna have to hurt somebody or whatever. Oh no. And then people get really like into it. They're like, oh, let's fuck these people up. And I don't think you're who you were. I don't think who you wanted to be, whatever, when you got into this, right? Like,
um, One thing I will say about that is back to when we were discussing about like things you can talk to about people that you could work on together. That's one of the things that I would like to work on, where a lot of like Republicans and conservatives say that they would like a wage maximum. I think that's a brilliant idea. If we're going to use, like you said, if we're going to use these laws against capitalism, I would make a wage maximum where you're not allowed to have assets, not just income, assets of up to a certain amount every year. Because a lot of these quote unquote billionaires aren't really fiscal, fiat billionaires. They don't have that. What's the term I'm looking for? Where they have the money in their hands. Um, but whatever, they don't physically have that money. It's not sitting in a bank account somewhere. It's tied up in equity. It's tied up in stock portfolios. It's tied up in places that it can't be taxed. They're stacked in tax havens where they collect money. That's the term. Thank you, Sean. They don't have liquid capital.
yeah,
So if you have a wage maximum or for only wages, it's not enough, because they're just gonna sit there. They don't make any wages. They just make money off of the debt they already have. They get loans out on debt that they don't even have, of money that doesn't even exist. They have millions of loopholes. They have trusts where they can hide their money that gets tax free. A lot of these laws we can work to, if we, like you said before, man, if we work together and sit down and critically think it out, we could come up with these laws that'll make billionaires non-existent and maybe balance out the system a little more, so you fucking capitalists can get a little bit of balance back into your lives and think and go back to thinking that capitalism works or whatever. But that's how you would be able to sell it to capitalism. I'm sorry, man, I went off on a tangent.
That's okay. We're getting a little bit into the
Yeah, we've been going for 2
towards the end
hours.
of the show, I guess. I'm not sure. One thing, Monarch Golden Monarch was saying. He presumes the topic was talked about earlier. Yes, we did. We're just kind of got on a bit of a tangent. We were having a good conversation, so we just kind of set aside the topic. We could kind of get back to it, but I feel like we covered it pretty well. And there's not really like you kind of get the gist of it, right? Like quantum computing bad under capitalism, quantum computing good under communism, maybe, but not necessarily a guaranteed thing. Like that's I don't want to be anti-China, but I can't really. What I feel like I see a lot of communists in the West are being extremely supportive of BRICS and multipolarity, and oh, that's all well and grand and great for the world, right? It isn't really actually thinking about what are we doing. We're good. We're fucked under whatever's happening with BRICS, right? Whatever China's doing has nothing to do with helping us. We're going to have to take a huge loss for everyone else to win under what China's doing, which is kind of fine by me in a sense, right? But we still need to also care about ourselves a little bit more and not just get carried away with like, oh, China will do it. Now we don't need Marxism in the West or like we don't, you know what I'm saying? Like this article, maybe we could read a little bit of just because it's saying like why the U.S. China quantum race is the most critical contest of our time. Because one thing that the way we could frame this topic of quantum computing, we could analyze the 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 race between China and U.S. for the supremacy of this technology, right? Because it's kind of uh, is it a metaphor or whatever? It's like it's literally capitalism versus communism. If as long as all the people who say what China's doing is actually communism are actually correct, which I tend to lean towards for the most part, yes, they are. Whatever China is actually doing some socialism there, but then there's like other Western Marxist kind of people who are saying, oh no, China's not really. It's like state capitalism, whatever. And then a lot of people saying, oh, it's just the Trotskyists or whatever other kinds of orthodox communists who don't really know what the fuck they're talking about, right? So I don't haven't I have to do some more research, I guess, to really figure out who the hell's right about everything all the time. But one, I think it's important to understand that whether China wins or the United States wins in this quest for quantum supremacy is like the most important thing, because it seems to me like if China does it, if they manage to unequivocally beat the U.S. in this race for quantum supremacy, then they have the means to put an end to capitalism potentially, according to their technocratic whatever methods that they use, which is I've been a little bit cautious and critical about because technocracy in the West has been a fucking disaster. But if they've managed to make technocracy something that actually is good for people, I might just have like a ideological bias against technocracy that prevents me from being able to see how you can make communism work with it. Because if the United States wins this quantum supremacy race, I think we've covered earlier in the episode pretty clearly. It's going to be this fucking insanity that they came up with um in those sci-fi movies, right? Like Terminator, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be Skynet, dude.
So I really
This
hope that China does it first. So
dude, this is just a rehash, man. This is just the space race all over again. Instead of Russia, though, we have China, but it's still a communist system that we have to stop. We have to stop the big bad guy. We have to stop communism because if they get it, the way I'm hearing it sold to us as a American populace is that if they get the technology first, the quantum computing is so vastly faster than regular computing that any kind of passwords or any kind of securities you have in your networks, obsolete, done. It's all gone. You have nothing to protect yourself anymore. So that China will come in, destroy all our defenses, and invade us and kill us all, and blah blah blah. They're selling the fear again, because that's usually what they have as the main weapon that they want to sell things to people, is fear. And this is that space race again. When they, back in the space race, the way they sold it to the American populace back then was they told them, hey, if Russia gets to the moon first, they're going to put weapons on the moon, and then they'll have supremacy over the U.S., and then we'll become communists. They're doing the same thing here. If China gets the technology first, they're going to use it to oppress us and take over the world, and it's just that same fear mongering. It's the same story, man. It's been rehashed.
Right. So this is just to pick out one little part from this article to highlight. The quantum technology race pits the market-driven innovation of the U.S. against China's state-directed strategy, with global dominance at stake. While China has invested $15 billion in quantum research and development through direct state funding, the U.S. relies on a more dispersed but possibly more dynamic ecosystem, which combines public and private sector capabilities. These differing approaches will shape the race for quantum dominance and redefine the global balance of power. So what that paragraph says to me is the quantum race is nothing less than the objective proof that we all need once and for all to prove unequivocally which system is superior, like ethics completely set to one side. Because if you just economically speaking, if the Chinese are able to, through state funding, wherever, achieve this quantum computing faster and better than the Americans, then that to me, that's it. It's game over. Whatever, you've proven that communism works better than capitalism. Okay, but that's maybe not how some people see it. So maybe if you got a comment or something about that, feel free to leave one. If you're watching at a later point, do we want to? You got anything maybe to say before we wrap up, or
Oh,
keep
yeah, I
going?
do. Yeah, I got one thing to say, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you giving me a platform. I'm a nobody out in space. So if everyone enjoyed our conversation, thank you all for being here to listen to our conversation. And I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Yeah, cool. No, I appreciate you coming on, and I'm sure as long as you're, you got the time, and I don't know what, like I seem to be a nice guy, like, to you guys, right? But then somehow I piss all these people off, or they piss me off, and I always end up like, who knows who I'll be friends with in a year from now, right? So I'll knock on wood, I don't want to jinx that, whatever. But as long as we're all still in good, whatever, like on each other, in each other's good books, whatever, feel free to come back, right? I'm always gonna be looking forward to a conversation with you. So
Right on, dude. Well, like I told you before, man, I said it earlier in the show and I'll say it again. Anyone who wants to be cool with me, I'll be cool with them. 'Cause that's all I want in life, man. I just want to be cool and hang out.
that's one of the things that I appreciate about anarchists, right? They're always, it's this very simple kind of, but a power, like effective way to handle your interpersonal relationships, right? Like if you work with me, I work with you. If you respect me, I respect you. As soon
Exactly.
as we stop doing that, how do we get anything done? Like,
Don't burn that bridge and we won't have to.
it's apparently tempting. So, all right, we're gonna kind of maybe just ramble on here, and oh, good to see you. Last minute here, John H. How's it going? Uh, yeah, this is where I got to start to have the Sean was saying they weren't open minded, obviously. Where it's like I got to start having more conviction with confidence in my own assessments, right? Because there's lots of times where it's, yep, I guess those people are not good for whatever reason, right? It's like I'd like to give people the benefit of the doubt, probably too much. So anyway, thanks for being here, everyone, and thanks for coming on, Cookies. And I'll see you guys next week.
All right.
And
Good
stay
night,
out of
everyone.
trouble. Have a good night.